is champion!
Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about forcing defenders to turn around and save the objective. So essentially what we're looking at today is a game that we run into a very strong defensive front. They have a bastion, they have heals, they have a tank. They're really holding us back at this choke point on Nubani, and we have to find a way to try to get around them and distract them enough so that they break their front lines and that we can make a push to get through. Now there's a lot of ways to pull this off. I mean, one is obviously to play a flanking hero to get around and harass them to the point that they have to turn around and deal with you. That's one common method. You usually see that in pretty much every game if you have effective flankers. But in this particular game, I'm actually playing 76, not a traditional flanker, more of a frontline support fire character. But he actually is able, in this particular situation, to find a way to get around their main defensive line. If one person's able to get past this strong defensive front and get on the objective, the alarms sound. Every Blizzard UI mechanic goes crazy, telling the defenders there's somebody on the objective, you need to turn around and deal with them. And what ends up happening is that you're going to peel off at least one or two defenders. The people that are heads up on the team and know that we have to stop him, we have to go back and deal with this one person. Otherwise, everything we're doing at this choke point on this front line is for naught, because their respawn will usually move forward. The only reason I'm really pointing out that I'm using 76 here is that this does not require a traditional flanker to pull off. That what we're really doing here is we're using Blizzard's UI mechanics and voice system to manipulate the defensive team. We're not trying to weave in and out of combat and fight them from the flanks with the traditional flanking classes. No, we're doing something different. We're jumping directly to the objective. We're getting past their front line. Several heroes are capable of doing this besides the flankers. A Winston can jump around them. Even a Reinhardt can charge past teams if he's able to do it at certain angles and in certain spots in certain maps. But all you're really trying to do, force your way past the defensive front line and get on the objective. Now, mostly this works best on control point maps, especially maps where the first part of the map is a control point where you activate a payload. And traditionally on these maps, teams will set up ahead of the control point at particular choke spots, hoping to defend those choke spots because they know that is the ideal place to be able to maximize their defensive advantage, their strategic placement advantage. And you really don't even have to end up capturing the control point. I mean, if you do, it's an amazing play that you're able to bypass a whole team and be able to come across with getting the first control point for your team by yourself. This usually doesn't happen. Usually they're going to send at least 2, sometimes even 3 people to try to deal with you. And what does this do? Well, this pulls those people away from the front line, allowing your team an advantage with pushing through their strong choke point defense. It's enough of a distraction for them that they have to prioritize you, a single player, rather than finishing off that strong frontline defense, being able to hold off a whole team with their whole team. And what this ultimately does is it makes it so that your team has the advantage at this point. You at least have a numbers advantage. You still don't have positional advantage, but many times certain heroes that have to rely on their positional advantage, snipers, bastions, Torbjorns, they will have to force themselves to get out of position. They'll have to move in a way that isn't advantageous for them, and sometimes this even gives you a tactical advantage for fighting those particular heroes if you're able to know that they're coming, whereas they have to try to assault your position. They have to become the attacker at that point, and it takes them out of their comfort zone. I always talk about the fact that playing defense is about making the offensive team, forcing the offensive team to make mistakes, that you can lure them into making mistakes. The interesting thing about the control point is that it gives the offensive team enough leverage to force the defensive team to make mistakes. If they've pushed out too far and they've rallied as a team away from this control point, you can use the control point as a resource against them, that they are forced to to retreat. They're forced to give up any advantage they had at some kind of position away from this control point. Ultimately, what I hope you guys can take away from this game is that you can dictate terms on a defensive team by using the control point and making that a liability for them, that they can't get comfortable in a highly defendable choke point position if you're able to get around them and force them to turn and deal with you at the objective. I think the coolest thing about this tactic is it's something that can be used against higher level skill players, that it doesn't require a higher level of skill to get past an enemy front line, especially with certain heroes, and yet you can have a major impact on the game by yourself. So get out there, guys, cause some distractions, and I'll see you in game.
I'm on fire. Anyone need some healing?